Spray. Reports shall include the names of officers and prisoners involved, full descriptions of situation when the spray was used, and the outcome of the situation. These reports shall be used to supplement the training courses to ensure the spray is used responsibly within the confines of the law. This had strong bipartisan support, as we viewed this as a very fair way of making sure that there was not any sort of violations given this new tool in the federal prisons.
If you are single-handedly willing to hurt so many people, hurt middle Americans who economically prosper from this bill based on what you are trying to put in, because that is what you are doing.
That's not what I'm doing at all. And also, I would just like to move away from the rhetoric of states' rights. You know,
how good this bill is for Democrats. I don't think the Republicans realize how good this is for us.
You know, Senator Graham, you do have concerns. Other senators at the table voice their concerns and voice their support for the bill. But as party leadership, we do not stand behind this provision. And I won't regurgitate the reasons why. I feel like they were eloquently mentioned by several of your colleagues. But I want to mention to all of the senators around this table, party leadership does not support this provision.
Clarification, asylum seeker means you already have to be in the United States.
That was not how it was discussed in this other.
That's the law.
So we just have to be
Strike that from the conversation, just not bring it up again.
I think the opposite point of like debating what is in the bill is you just figure out who's on and who's off.
That's the whole point. We need to know who's on and who's off. It looks like everybody's off. It looks like everybody's off.
Can I just propose an actual amendment like our majority leader asked us to do?
Here are going to be going into a leadership meeting in which we're completely confused as to what's going to be agreeable for this delegation. Now, I don't see a way around that, because this meeting ends in a minute. But I'm trusting that you will join together with your committee chairs and find some solutions before we get to the floor for it to work out, because it feels like a lot of division. I know it's unavoidable, but we've got to come to a solution, and it's hard, and I know we have a limited amount of time. But as we walk out the door to go confer with our fellow heads, try to find something that can be landed. There's so much division right now that there's nothing that's clear.
What about people with severe mental health problems? Yeah, we're incapacitated. The Constitution doesn't say they can't vote. They can't vote. States don't let them.
I mean, like,
This is. I just want you to really pause and reflect on how the Tea Party in your state is going to push you on this in the future. I mean, if you want to give up, if you want to be a one-term senator or however many term senator, that's fine. You're going to get kicked out, right?
What about the critics that will say, you start to let refugees in, you've got a problem? You said it as it stands, it looks like you're supporting the bill.
Yeah.
How do you respond to those critics?
I mean, the short answer is we are protecting our walls, and we are protecting and making sure that all of our citizens stay safe, no matter what. And this is a big part of my campaign push, as you know very well, Mr. Jarding. That I believe in making sure that our citizens remain safe, and that I want to promote the American dream and be able to rework that just the way that it used to be before our president came in and he messed everything up. Because as we know, President Obama knows exactly what he's doing.
What about letting these?
George Washington fought our Revolutionary War because we were under the servitude of King George because we could not vote for our representatives.
I find it ironic that we're all here because we're defending the Constitution, and my colleague from Kentucky carries one in his pocket, yet he doesn't understand what the 10th Amendment is all about. I would like to quote our own Constitution, which most of us should memorize. Powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Why is the federal government getting involved in voting issues at the state level? Help you.
Two books next to my bedside at night. One is the United States Constitution, and the other is the King James Bible. And now I'm going to do something that might not be very popular on this side of the house, and that is throw my weight behind the Honourable Senator Grom, a man who, despite being castigated by our leadership, has put policy over politics, who has given opportunity to Americans who deserve it. And I think what he's done, and what Senator LaRose spoke to before, is that we have to look at the spirit of this law.
But you know, I understand the argument. I understand the argument, yes, black people and minorities are disproportionately affected because are disproportionately affected.
Because what we're doing, the mandatory minimum, the unmitigated failure, just like the war on drugs. If we're putting people away, we don't need to put away. We're giving away our money to private prisons. We're creating a perverse incentive and a system of perverse incentives by allowing them to coma minorities, these racially biased laws allow the coma minorities.
Ensuring that the American people send us here to do one thing and one thing above all else, to just keep them safe. I think that if you oppose this bill, you're not fulfilling your duty to them.
We keep talking about Iraq and Syria, we're talking about the Islamic State. What it's doing is preventing barrier entry. I know Republicans like to complain about barriers to entry business. Well, this is a barrier to entry. The refugees are trying to take refuge from conflict. Keeping out the wrong people.
Good afternoon. My name is Senator William Greenlaw. Green like the color and law like the constitutional law we're supposed to be upholding today. I'm afraid I cannot accept Section 210 of this criminal justice reform bill for the reasons that have already been explained by my Republican colleagues. Because Amendment 10 of the United States Constitution reserves all power, not given expressly to the federal government, right back to the state.
You know, colleagues, I've been a part of this body, although I look a little bit younger, for 35 years. And I've never worn a purple tie to work. But today I wore a purple tie. And on a survey that I just took for the first time ever in a committee hearing, I ranked excitement with a 5. Because I am excited about the possibility to get this bill through this chamber. As I said, over 35 years, I would say this is the most historic reform bill that I have ever seen. The bill, the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act, does wonderful things for our country. I'm not happy with all the provisions of the bill, and neither are the other side. But this body is about compromise, about reaching across and finding a solution to America's problems. We've failed in this body quite a few times over the past 35 years, and I'm determined today to prevent us from failing again.
This is one step needed, one of many, in the right direction. We're not done with this battle, but what we accomplished today was, again, our step in the right direction. I'm very happy to say that we have bipartisan support on this bill, and I'm very happy to have worked closely with colleagues across the aisle. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for your leadership. This was a key vote, and I was happy to take the time out of South Carolina to be here. I'd just like to, again, thank Senator Mazza for working so closely with me and emphasize that this bill was fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible. This bill is hard on terrorism, and this bill also separates violent from non-violent criminals and goes a long way to reforming truly our broken criminal justice system that I think everyone agreed on. And again, this is to show the people of America that when the issue is right and when the conditions are right, there can be bipartisan support of certain legislation.
Well, thank you. This has been hopefully enlightening for you because it was for me. I mentioned to several of you earlier, several of you now have asked, is this remotely close to the real thing? And I said, yes, unfortunately. It is. That doesn't mean that what you did in any way wasn't good. It was good. In fact, the beauty of this simulation, I think, is, and so many of you are either my current or former students, and I really do feel like a proud parent or something, and all of you, Josh, yes, I mean, all of you, Mitch, you guys can be them, right? You can be those leaders. But what I hope you come away from in a simulation like this is how hard it is. Governing is difficult. Compromise is even harder because you can claim to govern by going to Washington, but you're not governing unless you move the envelope, if you will, for your constituents, for the people that you're representing. And it's hard to do. There's so many competing interests out there. You have to be so aware of everything you say, right? That words can be misconstrued, and pretty to deal with beyond the special interests that may have an ideological or may have a parochial interest in what you're doing. Well, hopefully what you see, and I believe in no country on earth as much as I do the United States, and yet I consider myself one of its harshest critics. Because we're not going to get better if we don't challenge ourselves to work together, if we don't challenge ourselves to deal with the problems that society faces and that America faces. And for those of you that have taken my course, as you know, I will get on the soapbox occasionally and say, what are we doing? What are we doing out there? Why aren't we solving our problems? Well, I think part of it is that we don't understand how difficult it is. We don't understand the role of representatives in the representative system. We don't understand the daunting responsibility that it means to represent. That is, there's nothing more, I believe, challenging, important, daunting, but necessary in the world today than legislators that understand their responsibility. So my hope is, and I use this metaphor, I used it when I taught a lobbying course here at the Kennedy School. I use it on my soapbox and my students in the 2 courses I teach. Part of what I hope you see here today is that when you're in representative government, there's a lot of dragons in the room. Right? There's a lot of entities that could screw things up, that could make it difficult, that could shut you down, that could, in effect, to say with the metaphor, devour you and keep you from doing good. My hope is that this simulation, in no small part, allows you to see the dragons in the room. Because they won't be slain unless you stand up and become a leader. I am a harsh critic of political parties. Even though by definition in the United States of America, if I want to participate in politics, I've got to join them. And it's very difficult to cross-pollinate once you join them. But yet what happens today is very often we shut down once we make that partisan decision. And it's such a mistake. It's such a mistake. This country needs leaders. We have more argument, I believe without equivocation, more severe problems threatening humanity that we have politicized in this country and in this world to our peril and to our potential destruction. They're real. And they're not political issues, but they tend to get politicized. Please, all of you, consider this more than a simulation. Consider this the minor leagues. You're headed to the majors, I hope. That all of you consider public service in the electoral arena. That all of you understand the daunting responsibility that comes with leadership, not politics. I very often tell my classes at the beginning of the semester, if you want to be a politician, get out of the class. We got plenty of those. I want leaders. The Kennedy School arrogantly says we build leaders. It is arrogant. It also happens to be true. The best and the brightest walk through those doors. Do not do yourself the disservice of not taking pride. You are the best and the brightest. But that in and of itself will not carry you to leadership. Life will intervene. Life will intervene. Whether it's your work, your family, maybe it's bills and responsibilities, but many of you will sit here today and say, I have political inclination. And you're 25 today, or 28 today, and pretty soon you're going to be 38, and 48, and 58. And if you don't act at some point to say, I will give back to this planet, I will give back as a leader to make this country and this world a better place because I served it, it makes it work. Life has a way of doing that. So please understand the responsibility. Please take this as a serious exercise because it is. I've said it was scary because it's so close to real, with one exception. You're here at the ground floor to understand how it works and to learn and to see this. 2 too many members of Congress go to Congress with preconceived notions, preconceived ideologies, preconceived politics, and when they get into the caucuses, they die. I know so many members of Congress who went with so high hopes, my hopes included. And when people say today, Professor Jardine, do you know leaders in Congress? You must know. You've worked for a lot of people. I'm sad to say the answer very normally is I do not. I know a lot of politicians and a lot of good politicians, and by the way, I know a lot of senators and House members, and now as I've done work around the world, leaders worldwide. It doesn't mean they're bad people. There's very few of them are leaders. Leaders have to understand that they are bigger, their responsibilities are greater, their role is more important than the ideology, the politics, any of the imprint that brought them to the bottom. In politics, you have a responsibility to represent. We're not doing that very well today. My hope, and I tell this a lot, people will say as well, Professor, you know, you're in a political arena worldwide, what do you see? And I say it's horrible. Corruption is running rampant. Money in politics seems to be buying everything. We don't seem to have leaders anywhere. And they say, well then, obviously you're very, very pessimistic. I say, actually I'm not. I'm not, because I see groups like this. And I'm not, although I could because I'm in politics, I'm not blowing smoke up your jeans and just saying that because I can. I mean it. I come away from groups like this and say my heart is filled with hope. So please leave here today, learn from this exercise, not just the mechanics, which was a huge part of it, but please have hopefully a greater appreciation of the need and the demand for leaders. And please, when you get to those august bodies, Congress, Parliament, Senate, governorship, presidency, prime ministership, please set as much as you can, and I'm a realist, I get the game, set as much of that white noise aside. You get one shot at leadership. One shot, almost without exception. Be self-confident enough, be honest with yourself enough, be strong enough, be committed enough, dedicated enough to honor that principle. I leave here today after watching this exercise with greater hope that will happen than I did when I walked through the doors a few hours ago. So thank you for your participation. Keep up the fight. I mean this genuinely. I think the next leaders in America and in the world are sitting in this room. If not you, I don't know who's going to do it. But you go fight. You go work and make this a better world. So that, as I tell my classes, on the last day that you're alive, on the last day that you breathe air, don't just say, I did okay for me in this life. It'll be a very, very hollow moment. Please be able to look back and say, I fought, I worked, and indeed the world is better because I walked the path. Thank you and best of luck in all your careers.